Good evening, YouTube, and welcome back once again to The Edward. I hope you all had a restful, wonderful weekend. And for those of you who got to enjoy and experience D23, lucky! I wish I was there. It looks like a hell of a lot of fun. Oh, and so much big things came out of it and happened there. But I already talked about that in my earlier video. Welcome to my film review for Ant-Man. I'm aware that, well, I'm almost a month late. But I finally got around to seeing it a few days ago, and let me tell you, I really liked it. Now, before I begin, I must warn you before I continue to proceed that this film review will be full of pretty big spoilers regarding this movie and other recent Marvel films, and what I think is to come for the rest of the MCU. So if you have not seen Ant-Man yet, and you do not want it ruined for yourself, do not continue watching or listening to this video. So you have been warned. That being said, I really liked it. You know, from the trailers and the previews, it looked like a hell of a lot of fun. Paul Rudd, of course, is hilarious in whatever he does, and I really bought him as Scott Lang, or the Ant-Man. Now, the one thing I was a little worried about at first was that Edgar Wright had originally been attached to write and direct this film, I think since 2006 is from what I read, so this project had been in development for quite a long time. Why it took so long to get made, I'm not sure, but it finally did get made. Unfortunately, Edgar Wright did not stay on board to write and direct after having creative differences with Marvel Studios. So somebody else stepped in and took the director's chair, and I believe they kept most of the original script that Edgar Wright had written. But I thought it was pretty damn good. It was very funny, very exciting, some great action sequences. Basically, to give you guys a brief summary, Ant-Man is the story about professional thief Scott Lang is recruited by scientist Hank Pym, who has created life-changing technology in terms of warfare, I guess would be the right term. And in order to prevent the world from plunging into chaos, they have to pull off a heist that includes breaking into a high secure facility where this super suit is, and prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. That's what this is about. So Ant-Man, Paul Rudd plays Ant-Man. Hank Pym is played by the great Michael Douglas, and his daughter Hope Van Dyne is played by the lovely Evangeline Lilly, who most recently appeared in The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies, which was also a great movie, and she was great in that too. Anyway, so what I really liked about it was, of course, the constant references and throwbacks to previous Marvel films. And a lot of people were wondering, where does this fit in the MCU? Is this directly after Avengers Age of Ultron, or has this happening during Age of Ultron? But as we get in the movie, when Pym and, Hank Pym and Scott Lang are talking about their plan to break into the lab. Well, I should explain that first. See, Hank Pym originally created this mod. I'm going to try to say this without doing a tongue twister. Molecule modifying. Am I saying that right? Basically, he modified these molecules and he applied it to a suit. A soldier suit. It's like a brand new uniform that could turn a man into the size of an insect. But once he realized what kind of power he was dealing with and what he had, he shut down his work in his lab and he hid it from the world. Unfortunately, his lab assistant took over the lab from Hank Pym, Darren Cross, a man named Darren Cross, and turned it into his own research laboratory to continue and further Hank Pym's original work, which of course was like not biological warfare, but like biomechanical warfare. That might be the better term here. Basically, Hank Pym recruits Scott Lang to become the Ant-Man and break into Darren Cross's laboratory and steal the suit so that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, because Darren Cross cannot really be trusted. He's got a slight, he kind of suffers from bipolar disorder almost. It's like he's got a multiple personality thing going on, as implied by Hope, who actually works for him. But the relationship between Cross and Hank Pym is very, very much strained. But as they're talking about this, Scott Lang kind of jokingly, but he's partly serious, suggests, I say we should call in the Avengers. And Hank Pym is like, well, I don't know. I think we could try giving them a call, but I think they're too busy dropping cities out of the sky, which, of course, is a direct reference to the movie Avengers Age of Ultron. And this confirms that Ant-Man is indeed the next chapter in the MCU. Obviously, that's no brainer, but time-wise, whether or not this movie was happening during or after Age of Ultron, now we know. And overall, it was a fun movie. It was a very fun movie. It was a good combination. It was like a good blend of a superhero movie and a heist movie, is what it really is. Because when Scott Lang is released from prison, he crashes on his buddy's couch, and he has a couple of friends who are basically his old heist team. But Scott is really trying to go straight from here on out. He doesn't want to go back to jail. He's trying to do right by his little girl. He has a very young daughter. He has an ex-wife, and she's getting remarried to a cop, of course, and of course they don't like each other. Scott shows up unannounced at his little girl's birthday party to give her a present. He tries to convince his ex-wife and her new husband that he's trying to really make up for all the absent time, all the time he's never had with his daughter. So he's really committed to not breaking the law again and not going back to jail for the sake of his daughter. So, he's really trying to go straight. Unfortunately, his friends talk him into a simple job, and that simple job turns out to be something that was elaborately set up, intentionally set up by Hank Pym of all people, because Hank tested Scott and his team's ability to pull off a successful heist, and he allowed Scott to steal the Ant-Man suit, and he actually watched him for quite a while and helped him break out of police custody when he was arrested when he was trying to return the Ant-Man suit. And that was a funny scene too, and he's like, wait, I didn't steal anything, I'm returning something I stole earlier. Paul Rudd is just so damn funny. But what I liked about this movie was not only was it a good blend of a superhero movie, a comedy, and a heist film, it was kind of like the passing of the torch, because as we find out, Hank Pym was the original Ant-Man. He and his late wife, it turns out, they were both Ant-Man and the Wasp. And comic book fans, of course, know, I don't know much about it, but from what I've read about comic book history, Ant-Man and the Wasp are the original founding members of the Avengers. Now, I believe the reason why we haven't seen them until now in the MCU is because at the time, Edgar Wright said, don't do an Avengers movie with Ant-Man and Wasp since we haven't done a solo film for them yet. That was way back in the day. Now that we've had obviously the Avengers happened, which was phenomenal, and all these other movies have happened, and we finally came to Ant-Man now. But anyway, what I liked about it was kind of like the handing of the torch. Hank Pym is like, I need you to become the Ant-Man. Like, if you really, truly want to redeem yourself, do something good, save the world for your daughter. And I like that line. He's like, it's not about saving our world, it's about saving theirs, referring to Scott's daughter and all the other children and all the other young people throughout the world. Because if Darren Cross sells his new version of the suit, the Ant-Man suit, he's modified it, of course. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could be complete disaster all over the world, which is why Hank and Hope are desperately trying to get Scott to do this for them. And finally, Scott feels like he doesn't have any choice because he really wants to stay out of jail, stay out of prison. And his prison break escape scene is pretty impressive, too. All of these ants suddenly come to him and come to his aid, and they join him, and they help him escape. And, the special effects in this movie were really, really impressive. And they were a lot of fun, too, because they showed us all different kinds of ants. Little ants, big ants, aggressive ants, small ants. And, it turns out Hank Pym, since, retiring from lab work, well, not necessarily retiring, but since he doesn't work on the Ant-Man suit anymore, he now found a way to control ants. And it turns out through something that looks like a hearing aid, that covers as a hearing aid, he's able to modify their, I think this is how he explained it, something about frequency signals or something that alters and changes the ants' behavior, and he's able to give them commands which they execute. And there's this great training montage where he and Hope is training him in like styles of martial arts and different fighting styles for when the heist happens, because they eventually get Scott to agree to do this heist. And Scott's really not left with any other choice, because if he refuses to do it, he'll just be a wanted man who's broken out of jail, and he'll go back to prison. And he doesn't want that to happen, and he certainly wants to improve himself in his daughter's eyes. So he agrees to help them pull off the heist. And there's this great training montage where it shows us all different kinds of ants. Hank Pym explains all of their features and how they work and coordinate together. And it shows, Ant-Man working together with them and then bonding with these ants, essentially. In fact, he names one of the bigger ones Antony. And it's so funny the way Paul Rudd says it. He's like, your name's going to be Antony from now on. And it's this winged... It's not a soldier ant, but it's one of the bigger species. I don't remember exactly, but it's one of the bigger species of the ants, and it's a male with wings. And that's the main one that Ant-Man flies around on, and it is great. And, this movie just overall was a lot of fun, and they get his heist, they kind of have to recruit his heist buddies, and it's hilarious when he kind of breaks it to him that he can turn into the size of an insect, and he scares the hell out of Michael Pena's character, Luis, who is hilarious, by the way. Reviews are coming in from this movie, and people are saying Michael Pena steals the show. He is a scene stealer because he is so damn funny. And he's always been very, very funny, but he was super funny in this movie. He's Scott Lang's best friend. He's a member of his heist team, and he's not an evil guy. He'll just steal occasionally, but man, he was funny in this movie. And all the actors were really good. And Corey Strahl, who's currently starring in the TV show on FX's The Strain, plays the villain Darren Cross, aka Yellow Jacket, did a great job too. He plays a hell of a villain in this movie, and he was a lot of fun to watch too. Everybody was fun to watch. It was just it was a feel-good summer superhero movie, which I always enjoy, of course, and I really enjoyed it quite a bit. But unlike other Marvel films, this one featured like somebody taking over for somebody else. Because we've heard theories about how Bucky may become the Winter Soldier, maybe become the next Captain America if Captain America dies in the upcoming Captain America Civil War, which I will refer to later, of how he might don the shield and the outfit. In this case, Hank Pym, who was the original Ant-Man, now has Scott Lang become the Ant-Man, because Hank is obviously too old to pull off this heist himself, and Hope can't really do it either. So, Scott becomes the Ant-Man for that. And, the whole movie is basically getting him and his team ready to pull off this heist. They go over the plan in great detail, and Darren Cross invites Hank Pym to come to the opening celebration at his lab, where he reveals the new suits to everybody in the world, and it's modified, of course, and we see in simulated scenarios of how it could be used in open combat and in warfare, and it's very impressive, but it's also very, very scary, and you can see why Hank would be so concerned. If this fell into the wrong hands, it could be complete and utter chaos, if not destruction of the civilized world. If people got their hands on this suit and they duplicated it so that almost every soldier could have this suit. And the kicker is that even though you become the size of an insect, you are a superhero on a small scale. Even though that sounds kind of funny and you might think that sounds kind of lame, they really make it work in this movie, because they explain how the suit gives you super strength when you're tiny. And it's shown throughout the movie. Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, when he's the Ant-Man and he's that big, he's kicking ass when he's that tiny. And it's amazing. This movie was a lot of fun. I really liked it. And I think one of my favorite scenes is where they have to steal something from an old storage facility belonging to Tony Stark, of all people. Unfortunately, due to their outdated information, the storage facility has now become the new headquarters for the new Avengers, as we saw that was established at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron. It's basically it's a kind of like the new S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, but they don't call it S.H.I.E.L.D., it's called New Avengers Facility. And who should happen to be on guard duty when Ant-Man shows up but Falcon? And there's this great scene where, like, Scott is geeking out with the Falcon. He's like, whoa, first of all, big fan. This is kind of awkward, but there's something here that I need. And he's like, and he tries to say, like, Falcon is like, who the hell are you? And Scott's like, he tries to say it so seriously with such a sturdy face. He's like, I'm the Ant-Man. I know, it wasn't my idea. And there's this great fight scene that happens between Ant and Falcon. And it's not necessarily they hate each other or want to kill each other. It's that Falcon doesn't know who the hell this guy is, whether he's a friend or foe. But bottom line, he's trespassing on New Avengers property, so they kind of get into a scuffle for a little bit. Scott, however, is able to shrink down to size, get inside the facility, and steal the device that they need in order to pull off the heist. And he and Falcon, exchange a couple blows. And they actually have a pretty cool fight scene. In fact, I'd like to see this movie again just for that fight scene. But overall, yeah, this movie was great. It was a lot of fun. They have, of course, the heist is a success, and they prevent Darren Cross from selling the suit to, of course, representatives from Hydra. And who else would want to buy a suit in order to use against the world and create havoc and destruction and chaos? Hydra. That was Darren Cross's original plan, was to sell the Yellow Jacket suit to Hydra. After a standoff in the lab, Darren Cross thinks he's escaped, but it turns out the heist team actually planted explosives all over the laboratory, and once the cops show up to evacuate everybody, the laboratory explodes, so it destroys all of Darren Cross's research and his work on the Yellow Jacket suit. And it ends with a big final battle scene, a great battle scene between Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket at Ant-Man's family's house. Well, at least where his daughter and his ex-wife and the new husband live. And Yellow Jacket, of course, goes there intentionally to lure Ant-Man there, knowing that this is his little girl, and he's going to use that to his advantage. They have this great fight scene, and it's a lot of fun. And, of course, they manage to actually kill Yellow Jacket. And, fortunately, his ex-wife's new husband shows up in time to help him out, and he protects the little girl as well. And so it was just overall a very exciting, very fun movie. Now, where do we go from here? Because Yellow Jacket is dead, the research on the suit has been destroyed. Scott Lang keeps the Ant-Man suit. He's going to be Ant-Man for a while. Luis tells him that Falcon has actually been looking for him because he wants to find out more about this guy, possibly as a new recruit for the Avengers, or just to make sure he's not a threat to society. Because after all, when S.H.I.E.L.D. was still around, their original mission was to monitor all potential threats, which included superheroes. And that might be what Falcon is following up on, is that similar policy of making sure this guy is not an enemy, but actually a potential ally. And, of course, something else that we get towards the end of the movie, right after the credits roll up. And it's something else that surprised me when I saw this movie. People leave right when the credits roll up. Has nobody learned their lesson by this point in all these years of the Marvel movies? Has nobody learned that you've got to stick around for the very, very end of the credits, and then you can leave? Because there's usually one, if not two, bonus scenes, and like half the theater left. Fortunately, most of us were still there, like, where are you going, people? Where are you going? It's not over yet. And sure enough, we got those juicy bonus scenes, and it turns out, Hank and Hope had mended their relationship throughout this movie because she had resented him for not telling the truth about the way her mother died. And her mother, the former Wasp, died by disabling a missile that was aimed at Washington, D.C. during a mission that she and Hank Pym were on when they were both Ant-Man and Wasp. And so Hank tells her that he and his late wife actually had designed another Wasp suit specifically for Hope. And it's heavily implied that Hope Van Dyne will become the Wasp in the MCU. Now, could she appear in Infinity Wars? Yes, absolutely. And Infinity Wars is setting up to be very, very, very big. We are going to have tons and tons of superheroes and Marvel characters in those two-parter movies. It's going to be fun, I think. And another bonus juicy scene right before the very, very end. who should we see but none other than Falcon and Captain America, along with a captured Bucky, the Winter Soldier. And it looks like they've got his arm in a vice grip or some kind of powerful magnet, because that's how they're holding him. You know, they've somehow located and found and captured him, or what, maybe he came willingly to Steve. Maybe he found out who he was and that he and Steve are allies again. Obviously, they don't address that in this few couple scenes, but when they talk about getting the metal they need in order to restore Bucky's arm, only Stark has it, and if they told Stark they were going to use it to fix the Winter Soldier's arm, Stark probably wouldn't feel too happy about that. So then Falcon tells Captain America, "I know a guy," as in, I know someone who could break into Stark's Stark Industries, steal the metal we need so we can save Bucky. And of course, who's he referring to? The Ant-Man. And that's kind of, and basically that's what, and they're setting us up for Captain America Civil War. And the whole thing of stealing metal from Stark to restore Bucky's arm and probably save Bucky's life is most definitely going to add to the escalating tension and inevitable showdown between Iron Man, Captain America, and the other superheroes who join up with them on either side. So overall, Ant-Man, fun movie. See it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And, please stay tuned for more upcoming content and videos. Stay subscribed. What did you guys think of the movie? What was your favorite part? Leave your thoughts and opinions in your comments down below. Let's be respectful, of course, of one another's opinions and beliefs. And, of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.